Straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily. Attorneys for Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell want the prosecutor removed from the case. Why a new secret recording is causing outrage in the case of 2 dead Iowa children.
There are some really bombshell moments in that recording that we may or may not ever hear.
And police body cam video captures the suspect's statements just after the death of Ahmaud Arbery. What Travis McMichael said after the shooting.
This doesn't look good. I mean, it just shot me.
Plus, we break down 2 sentencing hearings. One for a man convicted of impersonating a missing Illinois boy, our exclusive interview.
We felt terrible for the family. It was a horrible thing that he did to them.
And the sentencing for a Kentucky man in the killing of a mother of 4. Law and Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law and Crime Daily. I'm Brian Buckmire along with Terri Austin. Another strange twist in the saga of the so-called doomsday cult couple, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. The bodies of 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan were found after 10 months of unanswered questions. Lori Vallow is charged alongside her husband, Chad Daybell, after the children's bodies were discovered on Chad's property. Now, their defense is accusing prosecutor Rob Wood of misconduct after a secret audio recording between Wood and 2 witnesses reached the defense team. Vallow and Daybell's attorneys are requesting to remove Wood from the case. Law and Crime's executive trial producer, Kathy Russin, explains.
Rob interviewed 2 witnesses, Lori's sister Summer and Alex Cox, who is Lori's now deceased brother's widow, Zulema, in Arizona. They're saying he violated rules. They're accusing him of prosecutor misconduct, but the way this came about is there was one attorney, Garrett Smith, that represents both those women in Arizona. He has now said he recorded that conversation and that interview, and that he was disturbed by some things that Rob Wood said, so he sent the recording to Mark Means, Lori's attorney. Rob Wood said he had no knowledge of being recorded. He didn't know he's being recorded. He says he's done nothing wrong. He's filed an affidavit saying he was contacted by the women's attorney, Garrett Smith, to come down and kind of have a meet and greet with these 2 witnesses, and that he did that, and that he left, and then the women were interviewed by Arizona law enforcement. He said he wasn't there for that part of it.
Parts of the recording transcripts were filed before the judge sealed them. Kathy Russin has more on what's in them.
Prosecutor Rob Wood allegedly was saying things to Summer, Lori's sister, like, your sister's going to be charged as an accessory to murder. This could be a death penalty case. He allegedly in that recording talks about how Chad Daybell is the mastermind behind all of this, but he has his best evidence against her sister, Lori. So there are some really bombshell moments in that recording that we may or may not ever hear. And I will say that part of what we know that is in that recording is apparently Rob Wood is demeaning Mark Means, saying that he's in over his head. I'm all paraphrasing, but he didn't have nice words to say about Mark Means. So that part's interesting. Rob Wood also says the part of it, the recording that he heard, was not the full conversation that was had, and he believes it's been altered or edited in some fashion. If we believe what is in that recording, prosecutor Rob Wood told Summer that her sister is going to be charged as an accessory to murder. So other than that, we have not heard. Nobody's been charged in the murder of these 2 children. That remains were found buried in Chad Daybell's backyard in June, and nobody's been charged with their murder. So you have to assume those charges are coming down at some point.
This case has already been full of secret recordings, like one of Lori Vallow at a meeting talking about her now dead 3rd husband.
I went through a lot of years of this kind of hard stuff, and I was going to murder him. I was going to kill him, like the scriptures say, like Nephi killed him, just to stop the pain and to stop him coming after me and to stop him coming after my children. And I just felt I couldn't take it anymore. And I would go through the scriptures and find all the things, like, if he comes against you once, if he comes against you twice, if he comes against you 3 times, then you can kill him. It says it in the scriptures in the Book of Mormon. I was like, there it is, there's my answer. I don't want to do anything that's wrong. I did not have a murderous heart. I just wanted to stop the bleeding.
Joining me now is criminal defense attorney Julie Rendelman, along with Terri Austin. Julie, as a former prosecutor, tell us your thoughts on what you've heard so far on these allegations of coaching a witness.
So I haven't heard much. I mean, obviously we haven't seen the video, the audio tape, and until I hear or at least see some type of transcript, I'm not really sure this is adding up to anything. It's not unusual for a prosecutor to inform witnesses of the potential of people in their life being potentially charged with a crime. I don't think that in and of itself is any type of prosecutorial misconduct. Keep in mind, it sounds like there was an attorney present during this entire thing. And so I'm not sure that the fact that he had those type of conversations adds up to prosecutorial misconduct. On the other hand, obviously the attorney thought it was something unusual because he not only audioed, but then he provided it to Vallow and Daybell's attorneys. So maybe there is more there. Who knows? I'm hoping we get to hear the audio at some point.
Yeah. And Terri, how do you think the judge will handle this secret recording?
You know, Brian, I think the judge should deny the motion, and here's why. I think that Prosecutor Robert Wood didn't do anything wrong. It's not like he's the prosecutor in the Robert Durst case. If you remember that case, John Lewin really got very involved and could have been called as a witness. Here, I don't think the prosecutor was doing anything like that. He was just investigating the case. He had a little chat before his investigator started the questioning. And Garrett Smith, the attorney for the sister and sister-in-law, was there the whole time. So I think the motion should be denied.
Yeah, of course, we got to still look, like Julie and Terri are saying, into that recording and maybe even the transcript. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, how police realized an imposter was claiming to be a missing boy. The exclusive interview you don't want to miss. But first, a deeper dive into interviews of the defendants in the Ahmaud Arbery case. We're giving you a closer look into newly released police body cam video of the moments after the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery. Investigators say Gregory McMichael started chasing Arbery as he left a construction site. Son Travis McMichael is accused of firing the shots. A third man, William Rody Bryan, is charged with boxing Arbery in while filming the incident. Police interviewed the suspects on camera after they were called to the scene.
Just that.
Okay.
If he would have stopped, this is what
I know.
happened.
That's fine. That's fine. Like I said, just take a breath. You got your ID and all that?
Yes,
No, don't get blood all over yourself. It's. I mean, I get that your pants are. You need to move around. Do what you need to do, man. That's. I can only imagine. You got anybody who wants to call for you?
I live right there. We've had break-ins.
Okay.
And my gun's stolen.
Okay.
And we caught him the other day, and my dad was outside and saw him running by, and the neighbors pointing and everything. So
Saw who running by?
him.
Okay.
So we run out to stop him to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
He took off running. Came over here. Stopped. He come out of the truck running at us. I told him stop till he hit me. I had nothing to do. There's nothing else I can do.
Father Greg McMichael was also in the truck and described the shooting from his vantage point.
The guy turns around and he starts running back this way. Roddy pulls out in his truck and kind of blocks him. So I said, Travis, go back that way. He said, no, I'm going to go head him off. So sure enough, he comes around. We come back down here and he's right here. And he starts running past us. And Travis backs up and says, hey, stop. We want to talk to you. Or something to that effect. I don't remember the exact words that was said. By this time, I'm in the back of the truck. So the guy, he's looking dead at us, you know? He's like, from me to you. And he turns and he runs. Travis gets out with the damn shotgun and runs up there. And, I said, Travis, don't shoot. Don't do anything. The guy turns and comes at him. And they start wrestling, and Travis shoots him around the damn chest. The guy was trying to take the shotgun away from him. He's got it on video.
Okay. All right. Do me a favor, hang tight.
Yeah, I ain't going to.
Let me go.
I would like to get his blood off. I rolled him.
I understand that.
To check his pulse.
Yep.
Or didn't roll him. I pulled his hand out because he had his hand stuck up under his head. I pulled his arm out, and then I realized he didn't have anything in his hand, and saw that this ain't gonna last long. So, is there any way I can?
Give me just a second.
Sure.
Let me get some pictures and stuff like that,
sure.
and we'll get everything taken
you're
care
right
of. Okay.
Sure.
Give me just a minute.
I was chief investigator with the DA's office for
Okay.
23 years, so I know what you got to do. I know everything.
Back with me are attorneys Terri Austin and Julie Rendelman. Terri, this newly released video infuriates me. They had all this information and these guys weren't arrested for months. It blows my mind. Isn't there enough probable cause to arrest just based on the videos we saw here?
Absolutely, Brian. The video demonstrates more than probable cause. It essentially supports the highest criminal standard beyond a reasonable doubt. It's an admission by the father here that they were both chasing Ahmaud Arbery. They cornered him. And frankly, he really states that Ahmaud Arbery has no weapon in his hand. And, he's telling his son not to shoot, but in fact, he does shoot. So I think it is really, really horrible that they took so long to actually arrest the McMichaels.
Now, Julie, the body cam seems like the perfect piece of evidence for the prosecution, but what if he wasn't read his Miranda rights first? Can they still use it at trial?
Yeah, so I don't think the Miranda right issue is going to be an issue, and the reason is that the Miranda rights are required when someone is in custody and being interrogated. There's absolutely nothing in this video that indicates either of them were in custody. Quite frankly, in the incident with regards to the son, the officer approaches him, tells him he can basically do what he wants for the time being, and she understands what he's going through. And in the other video, the officer seems to walk away. So if it's not in custody interrogation, then anything that they say can come in, and there's no boundaries to allowing that in.
I would tend to agree with you there, Julia, but of course we're going to see probably the defense try to keep it out some way. Don't think it will be successful, but we'll obviously keep eyes on it. Coming up on Law & Crime Daily, a mother found dead after leaving a bar. An Ohio man is sentenced to 2 years in prison and 1 year of probation for impersonating a long-missing boy from Illinois. Angenette Levy spoke exclusively with a police officer who first interviewed the imposter.
When Brian Michael Rini showed up in northern Kentucky in 2019 claiming to be Timothy Pitson, it set off an absolute frenzy. Now Rini is going to federal prison for lying about his identity. In April 2019, Brian Michael Rini claimed that he had escaped from a hotel room and that he had been held captive for years and sold for sex. Mary Braun is a Cincinnati police officer who's part of an FBI task force in Cincinnati. She interviewed Rini at the hospital.
He told the story, he would answer questions, but when it came to the fingerprints and, then of course wanting DNA, he just was like, I don't like to be touched. I don't want to do any of that. And, you still had to be you had to be gentle because again, what if the 1% chance of this really was him? We certainly didn't want to re-traumatize him.
After talking Rini into giving a DNA sample, 24 hours later, it was confirmed he was not Timothy Pitson. Timothy was 6 when he vanished from Aurora, Illinois in 2011. His mother took him on a 2-day road trip. They were last seen on surveillance video at a hotel in Wisconsin. Timothy's mother was found later in a hotel. She'd taken her own life and left a note saying Timothy was safe and would never be found.
It was pretty tragic, I thought.
Rini pleaded guilty to 1 count of aggravated identity theft in federal court this week. This marks the 3rd time he's impersonated a victim of sex trafficking. Federal prosecutors said Rini caused unnecessary pain to the Pitson family.
How could you not be hopeful? I mean, I was hopeful. We felt terrible for the family. It was a horrible thing that he did to them.
Rini told investigators that he learned about Timothy Pitson's case from watching an episode of 2020 and that he only wished he had a father that cared about him as much as Timothy's father appeared to care about his son. Rini will be out next April with time served, and he's been ordered to seek mental health treatment. For Law & Crime Daily, I'm Angenette Levy.
Thanks, Angenette. Terri, Rini apologized at the hearing and said he wished he could take it back. Does the sentence, to you at least, make sense for the crime he's accused of or convicted of?
I don't think it makes sense. I think he should have a longer sentence and a longer probation. I understand that he definitely has some mental illness, and he should absolutely get some treatment for that. But, there's no question that he caused unnecessary pain to the family. Impersonating someone who is missing is a horrible crime. And in fact, if you think about it, he took time away that the police could have been really working on other cases here. So I definitely think he got off easier than he should have.
Now, Julie, maybe it's the bleeding heart public defender in me, but I listen to this case, I see no one physically harmed, absolutely emotionally harmed. There's no love loss for me and Rini, but 2 years in jail, I would have thought maybe 5 years probation and some mental health evaluation would have been more appropriate. What do you think?
Well, it sounds like he's getting out in April, so he's not going to serve the full period of time. I tend to agree with Terry, although I don't think that he should be serving more time. I think the time that he was given is appropriate. I think one of the things that stood out to me in this case is this is not the first time he has tried to impersonate someone. I think this is the third time he's done it, so he certainly hasn't learned his lesson. And I agree with Terry that it's not just the family that suffers when they believe this person comes back and there's someone that they've been waiting to see forever. But it takes time from the FBI, who could be and other law enforcement agencies that can be dealing with pressing matters instead of dealing with this absolute nonsense. I do think mental health does play a role, certainly in mitigating some of his actions.
Absolutely. But when we come back, sentencing in the case of a missing mother found murdered in a shower. A sentencing hearing for a Kentucky man convicted of killing a mother of 4. Savannah Spurlock was last seen on January 4th, 2019, leaving a bar in Lexington. Police released these photos of her leaving a bar with 3 men. A neighbor reported a foul smell coming from the home of the parents of one of the men, who investigators say is of David Sparks. Spurlock's body was found naked in a shallow grave, wrapped in garbage bags. Sparks agreed to plead guilty earlier this month. Her family was not yet ready to speak in court.
There will be victim impact statements forthcoming. I know the family wanted more time to work on them. And I spoke with the court earlier, and I'm not sure their relevance at this stage, given the prohibition on his probation and those type of decisions. So we'll be getting those soon, and once I get them, I'll forward them to Ms. Rowland and to the Department of Corrections.
Okay. And
Your Honor,
yes, ma'am.
Under the statute, KRS 421.520, it says that those victim impact statements are to be received prior to sentencing. And if they're not received prior to sentencing, then the family under KRS 421.530 will be given an opportunity to provide those to the parole board. But anything that's not in the record today, it would be inappropriate to put anything additional in the record after today.
Mr. Sims, does it matter to you whether it's in this record or just can go to the parole board? That's really all their concern is it not?
That's correct, Your Honor. That's all the Commonwealth is concerned about, is getting them to the parole board.
Well,
the judge then sentenced Sparks to the maximum of 50 years in prison.
This was resolved by plea 2 weeks ago, and Mr. Sparks, you agreed at that time to plead guilty to the charges of murder, tampering with physical evidence, and abuse of a corpse. Recommendation of the Commonwealth was 50 years on the murder, 5 years on the tampering, 12 months on the abuse of the corpse, all concurrent for a total of 50 years. I will accept that recommendation and impose that sentence.
All right. So, Terry, 50 years for murder, that number seems to make a little bit more sense. What's your reaction to the 50-year sentence?
You know, Brian, I don't think that's nearly enough. Maybe I'm leaning to the right too much here, but when you consider the fact he's going to be eligible for parole in 20 years and he could theoretically get out when he's like 45 years old, I don't think it's enough. I mean, obviously, if he stays in jail for that long, it could be deemed enough. And I think that the family here doesn't really want a trial and they want this to go away. So I understand. But I think that it is really a great deal for the defendant here.
Well, it's interesting, looking ahead to the parole board. Julie, what do you make of the family's, idea or process of saving their hearing testimony to that of the parole board? And do you think he's getting out after 20 years after the judge hears that statement?
So, it's an interesting, tactic. I think it will matter more at the parole point in time because he's getting the sentence right now, regardless of what the family writes. I will add something to Terry because I agree with Terry that I seem to be leaning the same way she is today, and I think this is not nearly enough time. The one thing that stands out in this case that makes it unique is that no one seems to know the exact cause of death of this woman. And one wonders if the fact that there's questions as to how she died is the reason that the prosecutors ended up giving what I think is an incredible deal to this defendant. Maybe time will tell in terms of whether we find that out.
And do you think he'll get off on parole when he first comes up to the parole board, Julie?
I don't think that there's a chance in the world, based on what we know so far, that he's getting out. And I can be confident that every single member of this young woman's family and friends will be there to make sure that does not happen.
Thank you, Terri and Julie, for joining us. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time. We'll discuss justice in America.